Welcome, loners. We're back again with another video. This one is actually stop. Linda's just mad because she attacks me, and then when I don't let her attack me, she gets mad and she's like, "You have to let me hit you."
That's not what I say, but okay. Sometimes you just want to punch somebody, you know.
Man, I'm the only one here, so thanks. I'm the one who gets it. That's what he gets.
It's a joke. I don't abuse him. For anyone who's like, "Oh my god, he poor thing," and blah 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 blah.
All right, episode number 65. Roll it.
My period's coming.
So guys,
that's not an excuse, but because I'd probably still do that regardless.
Right. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe on this one. But our first day of our Spain vlog came out this past Friday, so you know what to do. All right,
it might have come out the previous Friday.
That's why I said this past Friday.
Oh,
when this comes out. All right, anyway, so just make sure to go follow and subscribe our vlog channel, okay? Because we got some cool Spain videos coming out, and then just, since you enjoy us. So yeah, this was also a good one that we're doing because we actually got to experience what it's like to not have to even think about tipping, which was actually pretty nice. So this video is why tipping is so out of control in the US, and it actually just came out like 3 days ago, but it's by CNBC. So let's dive in.
When was the last time you purchased something and you weren't asked for a tip? Yeah, I can't remember either.
Tipping culture has gotten out of control. I get up to the pay window and she's like, "How much do you want to tip?" What am I gonna tip you for? I'm in the drive-thru. Oh my God.
Tips have been on the rise for decades. During the 1950s, people commonly tipped 10% of the bill. By the 1970s and 1980s, that jumped to 15%. Yeah. Today, people tip anywhere from 15 to 25%. According to one 2022 survey, consumers said they tipped more than 21% on average.
Nowadays, there are people who argue 20% is kind
let's be real. Nobody's telling the truth on a survey about how much they tip.
They just want to look like they're good people. Yeah.
of a cheap tip.
While the percentage that consumers are tipping at full-service restaurants in the past couple of years has remained about the same, in the fourth quarter of 2022, the number of tips provided at full-service restaurants grew 17%. Damn. Meanwhile, the tip frequency at quick-service restaurants such as coffee shops and fast food chains rose 16% during the same time period.
What we're seeing now nationwide is something that is known as tipflation. At every opportunity, we're being...
Why not just pay the employees a good rate?
That would make too much sense.
Take the cost of the food down, and then just...
Well, they'd have to increase the food price if they want to pay the employees what they're supposed to.
But then how does Spain and Europe do it? Their food is actually really affordable, and the employees don't get tipped, and I think they get a
because we're greedy
wage.
here.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Presented with a tablet that's asking us how much we'd like to tip.
In many cases,
I'm just assuming that the people at the top, when it comes to European businesses like restaurants and stuff, aren't gouging the customers, but they're also not sitting there on a yacht either.
I don't know
or
yeah, I mean, if people in Europe, let us know, with the cost of living of where you're at, do the employees who work at a restaurant or a bar, do they actually get paid enough to live?
They do.
I'm just an opinion from people who live out there.
Yeah. You can just tell it in their demeanor that they do. They're not sitting here. That's why people feel like they're kissing your ass out here all the time when you're receiving service, is because they are dependent on your tip.
Yeah.
Not only replacing the old-fashioned tip jars that you can feel good about throwing some spare change into, but actually suggesting tip amounts, often right in front of the employee receiving that tip.
I have no
Not
shame.
to mention also your dinner date.
Sorry for
Here's
stopping
a
again.
tip.
I feel
Stop
bad.
asking me for it.
I feel bad whenever like they're looking at me and they can see me if I hit the button. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, God. So then I
don't, because I know that person doesn't go and tip another cashier.
Maybe.
Like you're more delusional if you think I should tip a cashier.
Yeah.
Than not.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the dozen or so people standing behind you in line.
And it's gone beyond just the tablets. The other day I was using the Hopper app to book a hotel, and it wasn't until I confirmed my payment that I realized my hotel was $10 more expensive. It turns out Hopper assumed I wanted to add a tip, and I had to go back to a prior page in order to opt out.
Tipflation refers to not just that we're tipping more, but we're tipping everyone for everything.
You're being guilted into tipping on something that is not technically a service. It's someone simply doing their job. In those situations, consumers are feeling resentful. Where do you draw the line?
He tipped over.
TIP stands for to ensure promptness. Tipping may go back as far as the Roman era, but according to most experts, the practice likely has its origins in medieval Europe.
Of course.
Noblemen taking passage on roads would throw coins to the rubble to ensure safe passage. One theory is that it evolved in eating and drinking establishments as a way to forestall envy, that when you're eating and drinking, you're having fun, and the people who are serving you are not.
Fast forward to the 19th century, when waiters who received a full wage went on strike demanding higher wages, they were replaced with women who employers could pay less.
Wow.
A decade later,
not much has changed. I'm just kidding.
There was the population of newly freed slaves. The idea from these restaurant owners was that they were giving the luxury or privilege of a white person's tips.
Damn.
That was without a full wage.
Ironically, as tipping exploded in the United States, it became less common in Europe and was replaced with service charges.
While the first federal minimum wage law was passed in 1938, it wasn't until almost 3 decades later when the tip minimum wage was established. In 1991, the federal minimum wage for tipped employees was set at $2.13, which is what it remains at as of March 2023.
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't even know this.
Yeah, how do you not know? You were making $2 an hour as a server, remember?
But I didn't even think about that. I didn't think that was, I thought the federal was like $7 or $8.
No, it's not. State minimum wage is different, but federal, why even have one? $2 is literally nothing.
What the fuck?
You'd have to work 24 hours straight to make $50, not even.
Jesus Christ. And then taxes out of that paycheck. Jesus.
Yeah.
All right.
And then your taxes on the stuff you've already paid taxes on.
As far as I know, the United States is the only country that exempts tipped workers from having to receive the full minimum wage.
Yeah.
In 43 states, it is legal to pay tipped workers less than the standard minimum wage because tips presumably make up that difference.
Yeah.
In recent years, you might have found yourself asking, do I tip this barista for pouring that hot coffee? What about when I'm going to a restaurant and picking up takeout? And how much do I tip that doorman, driver, or dog walker?
When those in the service industry were feeling the brunt during the coronavirus pandemic, consumers started tipping for things they never had before.
That makes sense, yeah.
And the percentage of remote transactions when tipping was an option in which the consumer tipped soared from about 46% before the pandemic to around 86% in January 2022. If people were willing to tip the person delivering food to their home 30%, why not ask if they'd like to tip when they come pick up?
During the pandemic, businesses who lost a lot.
The whole point of ordering your food is so you don't have to pick it up. Why would you tip the same if you did the work that you're tipping for?
To go pick it up,
A lot of traditional customers and transactions were looking for alternative ways to make up that income. And if asking for tips was one way to do it, they were willing to try it.
And since then, that ask hasn't dissipated. Another reason consumers say they feel pressured to tip more, they're being asked to tip prior to service completion.
Asking for a tip beforehand is almost like a bribe.
That's honestly, right? That's a good point.
I'm afraid not to tip because, well, you do less good work.
Customers might not be concerned about the barista's perception of their tip before getting their latte, but what about the mechanic repairing your car? I don't know about you, but I'm certainly going to make sure to tip them well to ensure my safety.
Another reason consumers are tipping more, newer technologies. Kiosks and tablets with 3 large tipping suggestions that pop up on the screen in front of you. 3 options chosen by the business.
I have not yet been to the restaurant where they recommend 5, 10, or 15% for quick takeout. It normally always starts at 15 as a bare minimum, sometimes even starting at 20, 25, and up to 30.
According to a 2022 creditcards.com survey, 22% of respondents said when they're presented with various suggested tip amounts, they feel pressured to tip more than they normally would.
True.
They use
You know what? I really don't miss this. Like, or this is one thing that I could really get used to, like in Europe over there. It was just like a tap. Like they didn't, it's like tip.
You didn't feel pressure.
Like there was nothing. It's just tap. Okay, you pay for what you got.
Italy kind of, because it's not integrated in their culture there, but I feel like if they knew you were American, they would try to be like
it. I didn't,
because we stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like they never made it feel like in Spain. They never made it feel like you need a tip at all anywhere.
It was just very matter of fact.
Yeah, like you pay for what you get. Yeah.
Which was shocking
and nice. Yeah.
It was nice because I remember thinking many times where I was like, our tip alone would have been like $30 right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Those options as an indication of kind of what the normative range is and feel compelled to tip within that range. So the more you ask, the more you get.
The 3 prominent companies with that trendy, sleek look are Square, Toast, and Clover. They launched a bit more than a decade ago to help businesses run smarter, faster, and easier, all in one point of sale or POS systems. In some cases, fewer fees so it's less of a burden to accept multiple credit cards, no long-term contracts, and multiple other useful tools including inventory and employee management.
They got credit card processing into the hands of individuals and very small merchants. Square did a great job. It's been a tremendous growth story. That's half of the business today.
Do you think these companies are responsible for this turn of events that we've seen with tipping?
I would say they could take some of the credit for helping restaurants gather more tips.
Robert Sanchez manages Eli's Essentials in New York City. One of the business's locations uses Toast, while the other uses this. He says the storefront that uses Toast sees more and higher tips.
The Clover, Square, and Toast terminals to a consumer are very easy to use. Big buttons, big areas.
Not only big buttons, but those big buttons are easy to see by the person asking. Yeah. So it's easier to hide. Like it's easier to
I know what you mean.
To hide that you're not tipping on that other one because they can't really see it.
Yep.
It's, but like Toast and Clover, whatever the hell, it's like, it's just right in front of you.
Yeah.
It feels way more awkward.
It also, it's like, it's just like how much of the, sorry, I was thinking of my thoughts. How much of the tip is actually going to the workers and how much is going to the business or going, you know what I mean? Like we don't really know. Yeah.
Way to tip a different amount if you don't like the starting at 20% option. There are others that do it. They're just not as cool looking.
We've come a long way from being able to just throw your spare change into the jar by the cash register.
The new tablets have turned what used to be a sin of omission, I simply didn't put money into the tip jar, into a sin of commission. I have to hit a button and say no tip. I have to actively choose not to tip. Whereas before, not tipping was a kind of a passive thing.
Glancing at the tip jar could have also been a way to get a sense of how many others are tipping on that service and maybe even how much money. Meanwhile, not only can the tipping options be customized, but the tipping feature can be disabled as well. So it's the merchant's choice to ask or not to ask for tips.
From the business side, it makes employees want to perform better and do a better job.
It's seriously significant. It really pays for the software. You'd be a foolish business owner not to install it based on what the numbers display. Even a mammoth company as large as Starbucks has decided that they need to sink or swim, and the best way for them to do that is to offer the tip screen.
Starbucks rolled out the tipping feature in stores in September 2022.
It's one thing to have a happy staff. It's another thing to have customers that are feeling resentful. I think it's a calculus that all business owners really need to make.
Tipping point.
Do you think that they're somewhat going to start seeing that they're getting lower tips because people are paying tips to so many services, or they're resentful of the act of tipping in general?
I think that's a very real danger of servers in a sit-down restaurant. They were greatly affected during and immediately post-pandemic by restaurants doing all sorts of fees. Their tips were actually going down because consumers were saying, well, if I'm paying for the health insurance and I'm paying for inflation and I'm paying for this and I'm paying for that, enough is enough. The more you levy these line items onto consumers, guess who's being penalized? It's the one area that's still quasi-discretionary, which is the tip.
I went door to door talking with waitresses, bartenders, and baristas, and while they wanted to remain anonymous, they told me it's happening already. With inflation and being prompted for tips left and right, they say customers have already started to tip less and sometimes not at all.
A 2022 study found that 17% of Americans are tipping less because of inflation. However, 10% report tipping more. At the same time, more than half of Americans, or 60%, want to do away with tipping entirely. The extent of pandemic-influenced generosity has also gone down. 43% of consumers typically tipped servers 20% or more in 2022, compared to 56% of consumers in 2021. Meanwhile, the average tip for full-service restaurants has gone down only slightly during the same time period. According to Toast, 19.6% in the fourth quarter of 2022, compared to 19.8% in 2021. However, according to surveys conducted in those same years, respondents said they're tipping higher percentages, 21.2% and 18.9% respectively.
It can genuinely hurt the people who truly rely on gratuities for their livelihood. I firmly believe that the tipping invasion we're experiencing right now, I think it's a net negative for society.
And with that tablet at just about every counter, no matter where you go, the question is, where's the tipping point? I'm wondering how long before I'm tipping my doctor after an annual physical.
If you want to seem especially generous after an exceptional meal, you might decide to go big and tip 30%. But it's a cycle. As more people seeking to make a good impression then up their tips to 30%, maybe even 35%, what becomes a generous tip?
I have to believe tips are going to go up from where they are today. But I also think there's got to be a logical ceiling somewhere. I just don't know where it is.
No, I mean, that was a good video, but it just really, like, why don't they bring up the point of, like, why don't people just pay the employees better? I don't know.
Because
yeah, I know. I mean, I know, but it's
don't
just
have
like it makes no sense. You shouldn't have the employee like playing this game with the customer to like try to get what they deserve to be paid.
Yeah, I mean, in the serving industry, I do feel like it's just like such a, I'm not gonna say natural, but like everyone kind of is comfortable with that.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's been that way for so long here.
Yeah, like it's almost expected, and you know, there are a few handful of states, including California, where you still have to pay minimum wage. Tips are just additions, which I think is how every state should be.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that it was like the West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole like you're doing your job and I want an extra tip. It's like, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
Like, no, sorry, you're standing there pressing a couple buttons.
Oh yeah, you're talking about like
You're
the
not getting a
cashiers
tip.
at like Starbucks or something like that. Or
Stupid.
Yeah.
Why is that like becoming a thing now? A Hopper? Are you fucking kidding me?
That's to book the hotels and cars and
You're the
flights
one
and stuff,
booking your hotel and stuff.
Yeah. Like,
what are you tipping for? And you're paying for your own stuff. You're not getting a deal.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm sure to you guys, tipping is just like so strange to think about, which is nice that you don't have to think about it. Because everywhere we go and anything we do now, that we're presented with a tip. And I do notice it now everywhere. Whenever we grab anything from the store and we pay with like that white thing, it always is like has the 3 buttons, and then they're looking at you as you do it, and it's just like, oh.
I used to feel awkward when it started to come up. Now I don't. Now I'm just like, no tip. Because I'm sorry. I wouldn't expect it if I was in some of those
I wouldn't
shoes.
either, to be honest. If I was like a waiter and I was waiting on a party and doing all that, then yeah, I would expect.
Different.
Yeah. But yeah.
Because you're, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
Like
interesting.
It was a good video. It was interesting.
Sorry to everyone who comes from a country where you don't tip and then you have to come here and worry about it, because I would be just as irritated.
Yeah, me too.
But
and yeah, the waiters will get offended if you don't tip sometimes.
Well,
like and subscribe, all right, and jump over to our vlog channel. Don't forget. Peace.
Bye.